What's going on, fasting kings and queens? You guys, welcome to the weekly training here. Today, we're going to be focusing on how to fast like Jesus as we understand the difference between old covenant fasting, which there are way more examples of in the Bible, compared to new covenant fasting, which there are a lot less examples of, at least numerically. So we really have to pay attention here to what does fasting look like in the New Testament as we fast after and with Jesus, as he is here with you right now, right? So this is going to be a really cool training because I've actually never gotten the chance to really share this full-fledged with you guys. So this will be a first for me too, and I'm super excited for that, you guys. So as you hop on in here, and you're popping in on the replay, watching this training, do me a favor, just drop a hashtag replay down in the comments so I can see who's watching these and who is spending their time learning about fasting, you guys. Excuse me, I burped a little bit there. Before we dive in, just want to put out a quick reminder for you guys. The Fasting Kings and Queens course is up on kingdomhealthuniversity.com. So this is just to let you guys in on a little bit. Kingdom Health University is the premier place where we are teaching people how to walk in health and body with Christ. All right. So this is going to be the future course site for all of the fun things that we're putting out there right now. Fasting Kings and Queens is the first class on there. So if you go to that, you can bookmark the website. And you can even install it as an app on your phone as well too. If you need help doing that, just let me know. But with that, you will want to sign up, create an account, and you will get approved to hop on there within 24 hours. As of this moment, I have to do it all manually. So with that, you'll get access to extended fasting course, which is the video course in the YouTube playlist, but just a little bit easier to find. Intermittent fasting resources, and a lot more. Fasting for Christ Connection, fasting for more energy. And also this is where we're going to be putting up the replays that we do on Tuesday afternoons as well too. So go in there, check that out. It's legit. And if you have any questions on it, just let me know. But want to make sure you guys go ahead and download that. Raise your hand and drop me down in the comments if you've already set up your account on there. Okay. Now, as we go in today, what I want to just share with you guys is that there's some really powerful scriptures that you can walk with when you want to understand the nature of fasting, both in the New Testament and in the Old Testament. So some powerful places to study in the Bible. And, if you guys want to do me a favor, you can drop these down in the comments. That way people watching in the replay can have it as well too. A little bit easier is first one is going to be Luke chapter 4 and Matthew chapter 4. This is when Jesus goes into the wilderness. Really, really powerful stuff. I'm going to do a whole training at some point in times on lessons from the wilderness that we learned in that, because how many of you guys know that when Jesus went into the wilderness to fast, Spirit led him into the wilderness. Fasting strengthened him in the wilderness. The Word sustained him in the wilderness, and the angelic ministered to him in the wilderness. So it's a really cool thing to break down those four different pieces in there and how they each play in, especially the fasting component, as this is a fasting specific course. But that's a great place to go in and just learn the nature of what it looks like to fast. That's our number one example of Jesus fasting. And I love because there's not a lot of details in there, but Spirit will open it up and unpack all the details you need from that. Another great one, I was just reading through today, Matthew 6 from the Sermon on the Mount. Really good spot to go. That is going to be 6:16 through 18. Really good spot. And then as well too, you guys can go through Isaiah 58. I love Isaiah 58. Yes, it is Old Testament, but there's a lot of truths that still ring true in that. This is a place where you can find the Jesus in the Old Testament really, really well. Isaiah 58 is awesome. The book of Zechariah, specifically, I want to say chapters 7, 8, and 9. Don't quote me on that, but there's some great ways on how they weren't fasting with the New Testament mindset, right? And then Daniel 10 and 1 shows some good stuff on the Daniel fast, which we're going to do a whole training on that later on for you guys as well too. And those are some good places, as well as I believe it's Matthew 9 as well too. Matthew 9, when Jesus talks about fasting a little bit more too. So what I want to break down with you guys here today in this is making sure that as you guys go through your fast within this program, that we get rid of any sort of mindset around fasting that doesn't need to be there anymore when Jesus is here right now. So what I'm going to break down first for you guys is, what did Old Covenant fasting look like? And then the contrast of how we're actually called to fast in the New Testament, post Jesus, and the lessons that we can learn from him when it comes to how to fast in a righteous way. All right. So first one that I'm going to go ahead and dive into here, you guys, is that in the Old Covenant, fasting was primarily used in two different ways. And there's one kind of subtle theme throughout it as well too that I want to talk about with you guys. So the first one, fasting in the Old Testament, was primarily used as a ritual. Okay, it was something that in certain months out of the year, you always fasted, right? Think of even now, sometimes as churches, it's like every January we'll go on a fast, right? This ritualistic manner is something that's very heavy in Old Covenant fasting. And this is why, I think even a lot of people still walk with that today, and it upsets them because they don't want to fast in January with their church, but they kind of get peer pressured into it. And that's why I want you guys to know here in Fasting Kings and Queens, yes, you have the opportunity to join an extended fast with us every single month, but you are not required to join it. Okay, you can take breaks, you can take time off. We simply offer this as a community advantage to be able to fast in community with others, because it makes it a little bit easier, all right? But just know, you don't have to join in on those. You can fast and go through your own, into your own pace at your own time with all the resources we're giving you here. I'm giving you here within the program, okay? So it was very ritualistic. We see this specifically in Zechariah when when they're really just fasting just to kind of like show off how holy they are. And God actually comes in and speaks through the prophet saying, hey, I want you guys to start feasting and having joy-filled times during these fasting months, because you're not doing it for the right reasons. And of course, I'm paraphrasing right there, but you can go in and check that out. God was actually, in my opinion, really working some of the New Testament fasting principles in at this point in time, starting to get ready for what it looks like to fast with Jesus and after Jesus at this moment in time, because they were just fasting for rituals and trying to get God's attention. How many of you guys know that fasting does not get God's attention? It gets your attention. It gets rid of your distractions, so that way you can sit down without ADD brain and actually focus in and have a quality conversation with your Father, with your phone on airplane mode, and you're not thinking about anything else, okay? Fasting was not made to get God's attention. It was made to get your attention, okay? Now, the second way that fasting was used predominantly in more of a, you could call this like impromptu way rather than ritualistic. It was more so for mourning. So when something really sad happened, not for mourning like intermittent fasting, but for mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. Sorry, I just forgot how to spell for a second. So with this, fasting was used predominantly as a tool for mourning, like when David's child died. He went immediately into a fast, and sometimes this will still naturally happen for some people when sadness hits, the body doesn't want to eat. And then oftentimes in Old Testament, fasting was used as a way to just mourn, really just kind of stop, because maybe you were upset with something that God did, or you were just really sad with what was happening in your life at that moment in time. And when we look at these two reasons that a lot of people fasted in the Old Testament, there's this theme that comes along of punishing the body, right? Punishing the body, right? If you're really sad and you start to fast, it's kind of like, man, I want to take out aggression, but I don't have anything to punch or kick, or maybe I'm not working out, so I don't have a proper release for these emotions like that. So it was meant as a tool to punish the body. A lot of people, even when it comes to fasting, they still see it as I need to take dominion over the flesh, which is not false, but it's not the full truth, right? Yes, we are gaining more self-control, more ability to be able to just simply walk in full dominion of our choices around our health and around our body. But that's not the only reason that we fast. But this is a big theme in the Old Testament. It was to punish the body, right? And then when we look at even with the ritualistic use of fasting as well too, this was something to where they just kind of routinely said, hey, I want to beat up the flesh, right? And really grab God's attention. A lot of people in the Old Testament just fasted because they wanted to get God's attention on something. So when we look at this, we want to lose that theme of punishing the body with fasting and start to look at what does it mean to fast in the New Testament with Jesus. So our ultimate model for how to fast now is Jesus Christ. All right. And one quick thing I want to give to you guys is from Matthew 6:16 through 18 is kind of a little swap. All right. So a little swap. I'm going to tell you what not to do with fasting and then what to do. And then we're going to break down some deeper themes as well too. So Matthew 16 through 18, Jesus talks about how to fast in the Sermon on the Mount, which is his like best speech of all time, in my personal opinion. One of my favorites. And in that, he talks about how fasting is something that you do not want to make obvious. You do not want to walk through and be gloomy with. You do not want to cover yourself up in ash and stop showering. And you do not want it to represent mourning any longer. Or actually, his Father's will is not for it to be obvious, gloomy, to stop showering and bathing yourself and taking care of yourself, and to not have this represent just sadness and mourning. In fact, fasting in the New Testament, as Jesus tells us specifically, is something that we should use in a way that looks normal. Fasting should be normal, all right? Because we don't want it to be obvious, we want it to be normal. We want it to be a part of a habit, a DNA, to where we can fast and still go through our regular life at work with our family and nobody knows. Nobody knows, right? I could be 10 days into a water fast right now and you wouldn't know, right? That's how he calls us to fast, at least, right? Now, the next step is to be joyful in your fasting, and instead of being gloomy, to be joyful. This is when we look back at Zechariah, when the prophet spoke the word of God to the people, he was starting to say, stop fasting and start feasting and having fun and enjoying life, because I truly believe it's what God wanted us to do, is to start to experience this joy, but he had to take away he had to advise them to stop fasting, to find the joy, to bring the joy back into fasting, as Jesus is telling us to now in the New Testament. As he tells us not to be gloomy. What's the polarity of gloom and doom? It's joy, it's bliss, it's happiness. So if we're not called to be mourners, if we're not called to be gloomy, we should instead be joy-filled as we fast, all right? Find the fun in life when you fast. It's not a terrible thing. It's just simply removing food for a little bit so you can see the rest of the world for what it is, right? And it's a beautiful creation that God made. Next thing is don't cover yourself up in ash and dirt and stop showering, all right? If you are fasting, this was actually back in the day, individuals would cover themselves up with, it was a yellowish kind of material texture, something on their face to make it look like they were sick when they were fasting. I'm not making this stuff up, because they wanted to be more holy, right? They wanted people to see that they were the ones who were fasting and choosing to go get God's attention and go deeper into the rituals, right? Fasting's not about that now. When you fast, go put on your favorite outfit, make your hair look good. All right, as you guys can see, I just got done with a workout. Obviously, I actually haven't had any food right now, so I guess I am fasting, intermittent fasting. But I'm not doing a good job of that. I need to wash myself up after this training. I just came in for my workout. Then, when we look at this as well too, if we are called to be normal and not make it obvious, we're called to be joyful and not to be gloomy when we fast. We're called to bathe and wash ourselves and groom ourselves and not, make ourselves just look like a unhappy piece of doo-doo. Next thing is we're called to represent Christ and not to represent mourning anymore. As we go into a fast, we're called to represent Christ in our fasts. And so we can even go into Luke chapter 4, Matthew chapter 4, and take some lessons from the wilderness. Let me know down in the comments if you guys would love to hear more about the lessons from the wilderness training. I may do it a little bit sooner if you guys really want it. There's a lot of requests for it. But that's one of the really cool things, and that we can learn from Christ on how to represent him, on how he went through his fast in the wilderness. Okay? So some deeper themes from this is that when we look at New Covenant fasting, there's 4 things I want to make really, really clear for you guys. All right? And if you're taking notes, these are super important to write down here. Number 1 is fasting is no longer about punishing the body. It's actually about healing the body. Okay? A great book that you guys can dive into is The Atomic Power of God, which is a book all on the atomic power of prayer and fasting together. Really awesome one to see on this, but just to share a little bit with you guys, fasting is a miraculous vessel to prepare our bodies and to even shift our bodies physiologically into a state of receiving Jesus Christ, the healer. And why do I say this? Well, number 1, the reason why fasting is about healing the body and not about punishing the body is your body goes through cellular recycling when you tap into even just intermittent fasting and going 16 hours without food. This process is called autophagy. And this autophagy actually implements this deep recycling process to where it takes your old junky cells that aren't doing any good in your body and it uses them to create new healthy cells when you go without food, when you go without sugar, when you go without calories for a long period of time or a moderate period of time. So fasting gets to become this process to where we heal. What also happens is when we go without food, specifically sugar, because it's such a high inflammatory thing within the body, your body starts to reduce inflammation like crazy. How many of you guys know that when you wake up from 9-10 hours of sleep, your body just doesn't have any aches and pains on it? One of the reasons is you got amazing sleep, and that when you actually shut down your body to sleep for a long time, your body naturally heals. But a second part of that is while you're sleeping, you're not eating. So your body's going through a lot of healing and detoxing processes. If we think about it, fasting is when we detox and heal, and food and feasting is when we build, right? It's the building phase. We're putting in the bricks for the holy temple. When we fast, we're sweeping the floors, right? We're cleaning out the junk and the funk. We're cleaning, we're washing things down. So fasting gets to be your detoxing, cleaning process within the body. Your gut health will improve because you're giving your digestive system rest. Your energy will improve. Everything will heal. If we look at what healing is, it means to be made whole, all right? And if Jesus Christ is the healer, he is the one who will make you feel whole. And if he's implemented his healing power into the process of fasting, God designed it from the very beginning of time. Take advantage of that. Don't look at it as punishing your body. Start to look at it as healing your body, right? So now, if we look at this, we want to look at the next thing, is that fasting is really, really cool, I was actually getting in a conversation with a good buddy of mine. I think he actually asked me, like he told me he hasn't shared this publicly yet. It was just a one-on-one conversation. Some of you guys may know him, so I'm not going to share his name. But he started to talk about how he thinks New Covenant fasting is really used as a tool for rest and to help out with the law of rhythm, right? And I told him that's exactly what I believe and how I teach. So I share this with you guys to say that fasting, as we can learn from Jesus Christ in Luke and Matthew chapter 4, is that fasting is used to prepare for something greater. When we look at this, Jesus did not start his ministry until after his fast in the wilderness. Something magical, something mystical, something supernatural happened in the desert in that fast to prepare Jesus for his ministry and his miracles later on. So fasting is a powerful tool for us to prepare for something greater, which is a reason why I advise you guys to go on 3 or to go on 1 extended fast at least every quarter of the year, because the year works in seasons. We have spring, summer, fall, and winter. And what's really important is as the seasons change in life, as we learn from Ecclesiastes, seasons in the world change, seasons in our life will change as well too. And God has different seasons for each of us. Jesus Christ had a season of being a carpenter, and then he had a season of being a preacher out in the wilderness, right? Everyone's got a different season at different times. And what fasting can do is help to shift you into that next season. If we look at that, fasting was one of the tools Jesus used to prepare from shifting from a carpenter to a preacher and into his ministry. You don't really see much about him building things out of wood after that fast, because he shifted. And what the fasting did, just plain and simple, to help out in that law of rhythm, is it allowed him to slow down and rest before going into that next season. So what fasting gets to help you do in New Covenant, in the New Testament, as we fast with Jesus, is we look at it as a tool to prepare for something greater later on. Fasting, and something I really want to make clear here in a fourth point. So we have point number 1 is it's fasting in the New Testament is not to punish the body, but to heal the body. Point number 2 is it's used to prepare for something greater here. Think of the law of rhythm and seasons. Number 3 is it's used for rest, which goes in pair with that law of rhythm there as we prepare for something greater. And number 4 is it becomes a lifestyle and not an idol. Okay? It becomes a lifestyle tool and not an idol. So as we start to see how this can be used for us to just simply drop into a fast because we have a big project coming up and we want to get clear on it. We have a business download that's coming, but we can't seem to get it rolling. We have a big shift that needs to happen in our family, but we can't seem to make it happen. We have a big change that needs to happen in our financial system, but we can't seem to implement it. Whatever that looks like for you guys, fasting is a great way to get your attention and start to learn how to really rest and be prepared for and focused for something going on in your life, right? So it gets to be a tool in our toolbox. It's never an idol. It's never something that you have to do. It's never something that you have to do. But I will tell you, Jesus did say, when you fast. So while fasting is never something to where it's an automatic, you have to fast when X, Y, Z happens, you are going to fast at some point in your life. It's going to be helpful for you, whether you do it unconsciously. How many of you guys just realize that you unconsciously fast when some of the things that we've talked about here start to happen in your life? Maybe when you start to prepare for things in the future, you stop eating, right? All of these different things begin to happen naturally with fasting. But you never have to fast, but Jesus does tell us that you will fast. So as we learn the nature of what it looks like to fast now with Jesus and after the cross, we want to see and understand the different callings, textures, cultures, principles of New Covenant fasting, so that way we can understand when that call is happening in our lives. So I advise you and just give you counsel here on if you need to rest and slow down for something coming up in your life, this is when you fast. If you're needing healing in your body, and this healing may be to get rid of toxic body fat, so to release weight that you don't want to keep on your body anymore, weight loss, especially when it's toxic weight, weight that's just making you doubt yourself when you show up in a room. When you get rid of that, that's healing, because healing means to become whole. And when you are able to no longer feel self-conscious about your body that God gave you when you enter a room, and instead you're able to walk in full authority, well, that's becoming whole with your identity in Christ. So weight loss, specifically toxic weight loss, or releasing of toxic weight, because we all have a healthy amount of body fat that we want to keep on our bodies. How many of you guys know you don't want to lose all your body fat? You want to keep some on your body for hormones, and to keep you warm in the cold. Healing can look like a bunch of different things too. Maybe type 2 diabetes, cancer, a lot of different things. Inflammation in the body, rashes. One of the big reasons I started fasting was because I kept getting this big rash all over my face and my skin, all everywhere here. When I started fasting deeper, it got my attention and showed me some things I needed to change in my life, and it was healing all over me, right? The rash just disappeared. Some extra things here, when you feel that you need to rest and just slow down, take a weekend to fast and just take a day in the middle of a week, fast on a Wednesday. One day of fasting is like 1,000 years of the Lord. You can get a lot of downloads from one day of fasting. And then finally, whenever it feels like fasting is starting to become an obsession for you, take a break from it, because it's a lifestyle tool and it is not an idol for you. You can take a break from fasting. Right now, I'm actually currently building muscle. In the past about 4 to 6 weeks, I've put on about 10 pounds as I'm bulking up to add some more muscle to my frame. One of the reasons is to be able to experience what it's like to have a little bit more weight on my frame when going into a fast, because I was pretty lean for past few years, still am, and that didn't allow me to fast very long, because of the fact that when you don't have a lot of body fat on your body, it's a little bit more difficult to fast, right? When you have more body fat on your body's constantly eating up good fuel, right? So you can fast a little bit longer. So one of the reasons just to get stronger and to feel my own strength is a prophetic gift to my life, but also for when I feel like it, to dive into a deep fast when Holy Spirit's prompting me, and to experience what it feels like to go a little bit deeper and to have more food on my body for my body to eat as I go into that fast. But with that, I'm not fasting a lot right now, you guys. I'll go on maybe one full day fast a month and intermittent fast 3 or 4 days a week, because it's just become a part of my second nature, not necessarily because I think about it anymore. And that's what fasting is meant to be, as a lifestyle tool for you and not an idol. So I hope this training has been helpful for you guys. I would love to hear down in the comments your biggest takeaway from this. And go live in this Facebook group and share your revelations that you learn from these lessons each week. I would love to see you guys just start posting more in the Facebook group. I want to see you guys posting all the time in this Facebook group, your fasting wins, your fasting lessons, your fasting revelations from these trainings and from your own experiences. All right, you guys? So with that being said, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this one, and I will see you guys next week. Take care.